As I begin my next build of a 286-based system, build number 2, I thought I'd quickly share really this baseboard that I use to support my entire project. As you see here, I have this board, and this board is basically an 18-inch by 18-inch, and the material I'm using is a hardboard, and it is 1/4 inch thick. And on top of that, then, I'm actually laying down the breadboards, and I'm not just laying them down, I'm actually peeling off the back adhesive sticker and sticking this to the board. So these will not move. They are locked onto the board, and they do not come off easily. So if you ever do stick these boards down, just be prepared that they don't come off very easily. You'll notice that I have these rails, and really all these rails are some PCBs that I had built that I intended for them to be scored. And interestingly, in the 3D models I had, the scores showed up, but then when they actually got printed, the scores were not part of the build. So that was my fault for not checking my Gerber files, and maybe also just how I implemented it in my design tool. I've corrected that, so in future versions I can just snap these apart. But for now, these are a single piece, and that single piece then goes across these four breadboards. So that works well. It actually connects all this nicely. It's all properly spaced. You will notice there is a gap in between each of these breadboards, and that's because as I laid this out, I just used a consistent 2.54 millimeter pattern all the way down, and so all of these pins are on a 2.54 spacing. And it seemed like if I close this gap, that seemed to mess that up. I'm sure I could adjust for that in my PCBs, but this is the way my PCBs are laid out, which is fine. There's just this tiny little gap, and that doesn't bother anything as far as I'm concerned. Then on top of this, I'll then start setting down things like my processor, and that's going to sit over here. The version that I'm actually going to use is 4 pins wider, 2 pins wider on each side of this, so it'll sit somewhere over here. And as a reminder, then that's going to be a double stack, so there'll be a stack on top of it that will have all of the debug LEDs, so I can see what's going on in the processor. So this is a handy board. I can pick it up and walk away with it and not worry about things coming apart. Now on top of this, then, I am going to go ahead and use this newly revised power clock and reset board that I'm going to set right up here. I'm also leaving room in the upper right to place that Arduino for debugging. Down the center here, I will have room then for this bus board, and it'll sit somewhere like this. I did leave space around all 4 corners here so that if I do decide to come in and expand the project, which I'm sure will likely happen as I get into I/O, I can just come in here and set additional boards in. And again, I would stick these down with the adhesive stickers on the back, and I would simply jumper them into power of one of these other rails. So these have some nice spots for either capacitors or connecting wires, and I can easily jumper these and solder them and have a solid connection. And then at that point, these top ones would probably go to my power card here. And that's how I'm going to get started on this project. So my next step now is to start putting in the ICs based on the previous maybe a proposed layout, and we'll see how that layout turns out. For now, I'm not going to mess with these 4. I'm just going to leave that extra space. I don't think I need these for quite a while. I'm going to start with this footprint here. And I need to lay out then all of the other Intel complementary chips here. And so I'll start doing that. When I built this board here, I did not put any standoffs on it, which I guess I really don't need them. But that's maybe one thing that's missing from here. Is it'd be nice to bring this up just a little bit with standoffs. These up here will be on standoffs, and I will basically glue the standoffs down onto the board. That way these kind of get locked in place where they are. Maybe I can do that with this with a different type of a standoff. There's some standoffs that have a little hook piece that comes across a plastic piece for holding motherboards down. I could possibly put in 6 of those and hold this down. But I don't think that's going to be super necessary, so we'll see. I think by the time I get my wires connected and most of that, I don't know, we'll see. I was thinking soldered would be nice here, because even pin connectors kind of annoy me at times, but we'll see. I might do male pin connectors and then do DuPont cables, or make some custom DuPont cables that would go from here to the appropriate spots of the precise length that I'm looking for, so that this is as clean as possible. And I'll probably use 22 gauge wire instead of 26, 28, or whatever normally comes in a DuPont cable. So really simple, and I think a lot of you just kind of assume this is stuff that you do, but for those that don't necessarily do this, I thought I would maybe share kind of how I'm starting with this baseboard. So that's it for now.